VirginiaTalkRadioNetwork.com.
Fox News, I'm Tom Graham. A Senate panel voting to hold Dr. Anthony Fauci in contempt for refusing to answer questions before Senate panel last week. Fox's Jared Halpern.
A week after Anthony Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times at a Senate hearing, the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee voted to refer Fauci to the Justice Department for contempt of Congress. Republican Chairman Rand Paul says Fauci's constitutional right against self-incrimination does not apply since he was pardoned by former President Biden.
A referral from Congress does not necessarily compel prosecutors to act. 3 major wildfires continue to rage in the Spokane, Washington area. Tens of thousands have been evacuated, some returning to their homes, finding devastation.
Every single house that we've walked by every week now for 5 years is completely gone.
America's listening to Fox News.
When a child is struggling with their mental health, the adults around them can make all the difference. Parents, teachers, coaches, anyone who shows up in a child's life. Because in those tough moments, kids are looking to the grown-ups around them for support.
If you're at school having a bad day, you just don't want to do anything.
I just get these thoughts like, do better. All my little emotions in my head is just running crazy. I don't know what to do.
As a teacher or coach, do you ever feel overwhelmed?
He's just in tears in the huddle. I was like, what's wrong? And he's just like, I'm just so frustrated. And I didn't know what to do.
None of my undergraduate studies talked about mental health.
Teachers need tons of help.
That's why the Kids Mental Health Foundation provides free expert-developed tools and resources to help adults support the kids they care about.
Having those resources is the same as the CPR class to me. We're trying to save a life here.
Because when adults feel supported, kids do too. Kids Mental Health starts with us. Find free resources at kidsmentalhealthfoundation.org.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
The number 3, one of the most important and powerful numbers on so many levels. And for your wallet, it's powerful at InstantRadioDeals.com. Enter the promo code FIRE at checkout for 33.3% off the list price of select items. Liberty Flames individual game tickets, Liberty Flames season tickets for the upcoming football season, and Hill City Howlers skyboxes and general admission with a $10 food voucher. All through the end of August. 33.3% off the list price of those items when you enter the promo code FIRE at checkout.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, and asking your smart speaker, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane and JJ Hendrickson.
It's like the calendar flips to August and all of a sudden it goes from how are we going to, extend or begin the conversation a little early, which, let's be real, that's kind of what happens during the month of July to get our usher on for a moment. There's that. Then it comes to August. Camps have begun. High school football is underway. We've still got to find a way to preview and get some topics going on all 8 Seminole District teams. Not sure how we're going to do that over the next couple of weeks, but, where there's an Ed, there's a way. I did refer to myself in the third person. JJ, roll your eyes at that one.
Not the first time I've heard it. I don't think it's that bad, Ed. You're a host of the show. You got to refer to yourself in the third person sometimes, right?
Ultimate show host ego move in the fast lane. And then there's Virginia Tech. They are just beginning practice, and we have not yet heard from James Franklin at the start of practice. That is, conveniently, 6:30 p.m. tonight, conveniently meaning because we're done with the show at 6-ish. So before that ends up happening. And before the Hall of Fame game at 8 p.m., we have that for you on the VTRN Sports app and 93.3 FM in Lynchburg for free, I might add. If you're trying to worry about paying for all these games, just download the VTRN Sports app or listen to 93.3 FM and not worry about paying for streaming options and all the other nonsense that happens. Just had to get that little detour in. So we'll get to all of that in a moment. But the Liberty Flames, we got to Jamie Chadwell's comments yesterday about understanding their place in the college football sphere. Fans, old school in particular, may not like it. Me, I'm fine with it. Realize where it is. Players view Liberty as a spot where they want to be for a few years, but ultimately want to go on to a power program. I was talking with somebody who may be listening, and fingers crossed, prayers up as well, that we're able to partner as well on some fall initiatives in Jefferson Forest Cavalier football coming up. And this individual, a big Virginia Tech fan, and was sitting at a Tech game last year against Old Dominion, the Old Dominion game, the one.
I was there too, actually, Ed.
You were?
Yes, I was, unfortunately.
My gosh, I might be bringing up a lot of PTSD for you and this individual. It is, apologies for a moment, but there is an analogy, and it goes to what we discussed yesterday. Apparently, sitting around Colton Joseph's family, and made the comment, he was repping Team Snarky. I'm always appreciative of that. That, with the way he's performing tonight, he looks like he's going to cash in. This fan said something to the effect of that. Well, apparently sitting there were Colton Joseph's parents, and the only comment was something to the effect of, yep, that's the goal. And sure enough, he left Old Dominion to go to Wisconsin. JMU, their quarterback left to go to UCF. Liberty has not had a quarterback leave last offseason because he was not good enough to go somewhere else. They should have had one leave after the Fiesta Bowl. That's when Caden Salter should have left Liberty, stuck around for an extra year. I don't think either one of them benefited from that extra year. And then Salter goes to Colorado, and it's just an interesting side nugget on that as well. Apparently, when he was, drafted by the BC Lions, I believe, up in the Canadian Football League, he actually has referred to himself as former Liberty Flames quarterback, not Colorado Buffaloes quarterback. So for all the consternation of Salter, Liberty, and maybe not fans of how it ended, I think he probably takes a step back and appreciates his time on the mountain more than he does out in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. But I digress. The point of that is we identified all three scenarios where if you have a good quarterback, he's going to be leaving your program. Understand that. And the reality for the Flames is that is also one of the talking points for this season, is getting to that point where you have a quarterback that can be good enough to command attention somewhere else. Truthfully, I think Vasco, it's his only year of eligibility. Henderson, he's at a couple of spots as well. Deshaun Purdy has been at Wake Forest and at Charlotte. I think for Liberty, you're in an interesting spot where actually if you can identify your quarterback, especially if it's Purdy, you might actually have a couple of years with him around campus. Because I don't think he's likely to wow to the point where he's going to be bought up. Never say never, but you might be in a unique spot. But above all else for Liberty, I think the tone around this in general is different. Because first of all, you've got to have a decision sooner rather than later when it comes to the quarterback. Jamie Chadwell on just the decision-making being a crucial part for the quarterback, but most importantly, the flip side, which is they ain't waiting until JMU week.
I hope not. No, I hope not. Yeah. If it is, nobody's probably done a good job.
And they haven't gotten them to the point where the quarterback actually stands out. But I actually also think Jamie Chadwell is saying that he hopes not to wait till the JMU week to name a quarterback. I think it's also tied to this. If you listen to Jamie Chadwell from his comments yesterday, it sure sounds like the coaching staff that they don't have a QB1 solidified, but they've got a pretty good idea based on what they've seen on film in spring ball and projecting that going forward.
I mean, you have an idea through spring, through summer. You have an idea. Maybe somebody surprises you with their improvement in the summer, but you have an idea who you think it is. What's unique is you've got obviously Ethan Vasco coming off an injury. He wasn't in the spring, so he didn't get any reps in the spring. So you got to see how he improves from he knows the system, so he's obviously been here for that. But as far as his health, so you got to see how he improves with that. I think that's a challenge for him just to see where he's at from his injury. And then those other guys now they've been in it through a spring and a summer. So from an install standpoint, we've probably installed the offense 4 or 5 times as far as installs for a while. So that might not have done the games, but we've went through it enough, so they should have a foundation and understanding about go out and perform at the level we think they should.
I think at this point, that's what you used in the spring. And most people would say that it's Purdy or Henderson, and then Vasco's the third quarterback in the mix for this as well. There is a process, by the way, to it, but I don't know if we're going to call this a total detour. Ethan Vasco at quarterback for Liberty. If you mention that name to Flames fans, you will get a lot of negative feedback at JJ Hendrickson27, or we will at Fastlane Edlane on our social media platforms. First of all, Vasco apparently believes he is good to go health-wise.
Says he is, and doctors say he is, and so he says he feels great, and I'm not taking that he's not. You have to, I think anytime he had an upper body injury, anytime you have upper body recovery, you just got to see how that continues to develop. It takes a little while because he went from not doing any type of throwing for about 5-6 months. And then you got to build your arm and all those things, different backups. So it just takes a little longer.
It does take a little bit longer. As Jamie Chadwell mentioned, we're discussing Ethan Vasco at quarterback. But here's the other thing. I don't pretend to have watched every single game of Deshaun Purdy, particularly when he was playing at Charlotte, and Jalen Henderson when he was at West Virginia, among his other stops. But we've seen enough out of Ethan Vasco where this is the element where if I'm a Flames fan, I have concern, and I do believe he's probably, if you were to put those three together, I'll put Houck and anyone else further out of the race. Not saying they're done, but I'd be pretty shocked if any of them gets the job. Part of the knock on Vasco is I think we saw enough on film last year, and maybe health played a role in this, but decision-making also is something, when Jamie Chadwell mentions not wanting that again, relative to college players, pretty good athlete, but relative to the NFL, it was just not nearly.
First scrimmage. So once we get to the first scrimmage, we're naming our top two, and the top two are going to get the rest of the reps throughout the rest of the camp, and then we'll name our one after probably the next 5. So everybody will have the chance through that first scrimmage, and then after that, we're going to our top 2, and those 2 are going to be the ones focused on getting all the reps, not trying to figure out who threw all that stuff. I made a mistake with that in the past, and then once hopefully one's identified, and then he's the one out for one. So that's our hard line. We're not going after as far as the top 2. Now, it might take a little longer to figure out who one is, but the top 2 we're going to identify and go from there.
What are you going to do? Pout, leave the team, and forego your money, which, again, this is how big boy business works. I'm all for players having the right to get paid. But if you don't like your situation or where you are on the depth chart in pro football, professional by the NFL, I mean, and you walk out, cool, go ahead and walk out. Just not going to get paid. No roster bonuses, no contract incentives, no actual salary because you're not upholding your end of the bargain. Pretty easy. Show up and do the best you can, even if you're not on the depth chart. I think it's fine for that to be the case in college, JJ, because, look, if you can't have your cake and eat it too. You want to have the cake of being paid, which is fine with me, then be treated like a professional, which means show up even if you don't like what's going on in your job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a contract in a sense. If you're not going to do what you signed up to do, I don't think you have any right to that money at all. I get that you worked hard to get to that spot, but they're not paying you because of what you've done up to that point. You got to keep doing it and keep maintaining what you do. And even if you don't like your role, I mean, what a bad teammate you would be to not continue to stick with the team and do what needs to be done to help your teammates be the best they could possibly be.
No doubt. Those are all real legitimate questions and concerns when it comes to college football. Speaking of questions and concerns, the hits just keep on coming. And we get to that right now in...
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
The old "when it rains it pours" slogan is appropriate for the North Carolina Tar Heels right now. We've had the Bill Belichick situation last season when we had Michael Lombardi on administrative leave. Now we've got defensive coordinator Steve Belichick, Bill's son, is on medical leave, and he'll be back, quote, as soon as possible, end quote. That's what Belichick basically said when asked about whether Steve Belichick, the defensive coordinator, and Bill's son will be back in time for the season opener in week 0, which you can hear 11:30 airtime on the VTRN Sports app for free. Your home for great play-by-play, as well as 93.3 FM in Lynchburg. Actually, as odd as this sounds, this is much more concerning than the Michael Lombardi one for North Carolina. The roster is largely intact. A lot of Carolina fans want Lombardi gone, so if he's gone and just continues to be out for an indefinite amount of time, I don't know if Carolina fans are upset, even if it makes Bill Belichick not as happy because that's his right-hand man. Meanwhile, Steve Belichick, that is a literal translation to the field. I get it. Bill Belichick is arguably one of the best, if not the best, defensive mind ever, so I think Carolina, in that sense, can compensate for it. But just having one more fire to have to put out and have to deal with, that's the concern from a Bill Belichick, North Carolina angle is these things just keep popping up left and right.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how much keeps popping up at UNC Chapel Hill. I mean, just thinking about it, that I do not envy their situation at all. And so much of it has been in their control, just poor decisions. I mean, we don't know the full details of the Michael Lombardi story, but something like this with Steve Belichick, a medical leave of absence. Now you're adding bad luck to poor decisions, and I really don't see how the situation for UNC can get much worse at this point.
We will have a chance to discuss, by the way, with their football color analyst for the upcoming season on the radio. You may know him from the Flame Central podcast, Joe Yawk, slated to join us around 5:25 today in the Fast Lane. We'll kind of discuss all of that in the Fast Lane. More Liberty, but a little bit of North Carolina as well. Speaking of, by the way, when it comes to football, albeit the NFL,
Number 4.
we've got a 3-pack of NFL nuggets. One, Jonathan Taylor. 2-year, $44 million extension. It could go as high as $47 million, $39 million guaranteed. I'll repeat what I've said about Bijan Robinson with the Atlanta Falcons, and I'll say it again when Jahmyr Gibbs gets his deal with Detroit. I think shorter, and normally, I think the players are actually wise to try to bet on themselves. But in a physical game like football, and in particular, arguably the most physically demanding position and the shortest shelf life relative to the physical demands, the running back position, I'm actually okay if I'm teams to just keep going at these quicker deals for running backs. And whether it's Taylor, whether it's Robinson, whatever Gibbs gets, I think they're infinitely more valuable to their team's ability to move the ball and win games than I'll just throw out a Chris Olave for the New Orleans Saints or a Zay Flowers for the Baltimore Ravens. Don't get me wrong, they both have pieces there, but relative value to your program and your offense, I think all the running backs we mentioned are more valuable than any of the wide receivers, and yet you're still paying the running backs less. I'd still do that. I think the running back market is catching up, but it's kind of like defensive tackle. I don't think it's quite caught up to where it should be. So if you can get good value there, if you're a team, grab it while you can.
Yeah, a lot of people really don't like giving running backs these kind of contracts. But when it comes to a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who's in the absolute upper echelon of running backs in the NFL, I mean, since he entered the league in 2020, he's got the second most rushing touchdowns, the second most yards, trailing Derrick Henry in both those stats. And he actually has the 5th highest rushing average in NFL history. He averages 90.5 yards a game. The only concern with Jonathan Taylor at this point is he is 27 years old, so he's older than a guy like Bijan or Gibbs at this point. But I think he's done good enough for the Colts so far. You want to keep him around. I'm not too mad at this contract at all.
I mean, that type of 2-year extension really means you got him under contract now for 3 years, which basically means you got, even if he gets injured this year, you give him a chance next year. And after that, you can kind of cut loose and start making contingency plans. Again, Colts, they got a lot of issues, but the thought behind this one makes sense. Meanwhile,
Number 3.
Jerry Jones reportedly is open to Mark Cuban as a minority investor, but is not looking for actual additional outside investors. I mean, doesn't the NFL have it made? You can get these minority investors in there. They have a stake in the team. They really don't get any controlling interest at all. They ultimately have no real authority and power. And they what? Maybe get some decent seats to games here or there, but nothing spectacular. I mean, yes, you can sell. It's a rising value. So even if you hold it for 5 years, you're probably going to make your money back and then some when selling it out. But this is a pretty good deal. And look, for all the grief about the Cowboys and as valuable as they are, I think it's smart. You get outside money, get outside interest and ideas. I wonder if there's a little succession thinking with Jerry Jones, which is ultimately, I think he's going to leave it to Stephen Jones and to his offspring. They've all had roles with longevity in the Dallas Cowboys business operations. So all of his kids, his 2 sons and his daughter, have had that. I actually think if you're going to turn it over, this is the way to do it. It's not the shove my child into a job when they're not ready for it. Give them a trial. Give them responsibilities. If they show they can handle it and they keep wanting more and keep wanting to grow, you can do that. It makes sense. But to get access to an outside investor and somebody that can be in on regular planning and decision-making is basically free advice for the Dallas Cowboys. Why not take it?
Yeah, the succession angle is really interesting, Ed. I haven't even thought about that. But I guess Mark Cuban, I mean, we know longtime owner of the Dallas Mavericks, probably getting a little bored now that he's no longer as involved with that team. I don't see any downside for the Cowboys to let him come on as a minority owner. And like you said, if he does end up succeeding them, which I think is less likely than not, it could end up being really good for Dallas.
Meanwhile, speaking of Jerry Jones and his penchant for broadcasting and money,
Number 2.
are we standing up to the NFL? Fox CEO Lachlan Murdoch, Rupert's son, has said Thursday, speaking of successions, by the way, has said earlier today on the company's 4th quarter earnings call that it will not open up its NFL contract until after the 2029 season. I don't know if this is just a game of stare down between Fox and the NFL, because the NFL has wanted to keep looking in and possibly opening these deals up sooner, seeing how much money has gone to the NBA. But 2029 is still a reasonable time. The NBA's locked in for whatever they're locked in. The college football landscape, that's 2030, 2031. The NFL will get first bite at the apple. They can still drive the ship, relatively speaking. And I do wonder whether, they're not saying they're going to open it up, but it doesn't mean that the NFL can discuss things when it's, quote, not open, that Fox and the NFL might not rework the deal if they can make it mutually beneficial. There's a level of posturing that's going on, essentially, with this.
Yeah, I'm really curious how the situation unfolds. Like you said, it's going to be coming out a lot sooner than the NBA and college football. And it's not often we see someone stand up to the NFL like this. I mean, it's not fully clear that's what they're doing so far, but it does feel like there's a chance that happens long term.
Speaking of, by the way, business ventures, just a lighthearted.
Number 1.
LeBron James and ESPN, they are closing in on an agreement for a behind-the-scenes documentary that will be similar to Michael Jordan's The Last Dance. This according to The Athletic's Andrew Marchand. It's expected to include footage from all throughout James's career, some never-before-seen footage, and a camera crew documenting his time with the 76ers this season. I will say this again. If it comes out during the season, no bueno. If this comes out in a year or two, because LeBron has said this is his last year in the NBA, I'm fine with it at that point because you're going to get better access, more information. I don't think it's the full unvarnished access, but I want it to be released when LeBron's career is done, because I think at that point he'll more likely exhale and more information will come out, which will give us a better look. I'm fascinated by it, but I want more candor out of it as well, because there are a lot of LeBron things where he's very image conscious, and I'm not under the delusion all the walls are going to be broken, but I want some of them too.
Yeah, there's a long-running joke in the internet where anytime something relative to LeBron happens, they say, how will this affect LeBron's legacy? But when it comes to this, I really am curious how it affects his legacy, because you think back to when The Last Dance dropped in 2020, I feel like that really bolstered Michael Jordan's. I mean, he was already heralded as the greatest to ever do it, but that just strengthened his case even more. So I personally probably will not be watching it as much. I mean, I hate the 76ers, so I really do not want to be paying attention to their full in-depth look at their season. But at the end of the day, it's LeBron. It's going to get views. It's going to be entertaining to watch, I'm sure.
Meanwhile, somebody who's entertaining, gets views, and does a great job, Carolina and the Liberty Flames. Joe Yock, Carolina football radio analyst and Flame Central podcast co-host, touching on some heels and LU. Next in the Fast Lane.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Volkswagen. Get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terrybw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
Thinking about land? Think the Farmers Bank of Appomattox. Whether it's for building, farming, or investing, we're here to help you take that next step. Our land loans offer flexible options and local decision-making you can trust because we're based in Appomattox and have locations throughout Central Virginia. Let's turn your plans into possibilities. Visit us today on Timberlake Road or the Farmers Bank branch that's convenient for you and start your journey toward owning the land you've always wanted.
When shopping for auto liability insurance, it's wise to consider the best policy, not the cheapest. Hi, I'm Randy Trost with Trost Law. It's crucial to have more than the minimum insurance on your auto liability policy. This protects you if you injure someone or if someone without proper insurance hurts you. Having the right policy ensures you have sufficient underinsured coverage to take care of you and your family. To learn more how we can help you navigate these challenges, visit us at trostlaw.com. That's trostlaw.com.
Fluffy, made from scratch biscuits. Hearty ham, sausage and bacon paired with eggs. When you're craving a hearty morning start, head to 801 Raw Bar for an authentic, true country-style breakfast. You'll be greeted by the sound of sizzling bacon, the beauty of fluffy scrambled eggs, and the taste of golden buttermilk biscuits, cooked fresh and piled high. You don't need deep pockets for a deeply satisfying meal. Get classic Southern breakfast at 801 Raw Bar. Big country flavor, tiny price tag.
VTRN Sports, your companion at work, at home, and in your car. VTRN Sports. Download our app and take us everywhere.
join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
We'll get it out of the way first, the North Carolina, because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Liberty Flames as well. He's the football radio analyst for the North Carolina Tar Heels, and he also is the co-host of the Flame Central podcast. Making his debut in the Fast Lane, it has been far too long. I must get my usher on for a moment and confess that falls on me. We welcome in Joe Yock. With us to the Fast Lane, Joe, great to be speaking with you. A pleasure to have you on.
Can't hear.
Congratulations on the new opportunity with North Carolina.
Can't hear you.
All right. Can you hear us now? All right. If we have an issue, we're going to try one more time. We're going to get reconnected. And then if we have a difficult time, we'll get Joe Yock back on in just a moment. JJ is working feverishly to address that. For North Carolina, we've touched on it. I know I touched on this in the Fast Five at 5-ish. To me, it's actually more interesting, the Steve Belichick coaching news, that he's on indefinite medical leave, because that puts him in a spot where you're going, what's the reality of that team? But I think they're actually uniquely equipped to overcome it, because you got arguably one of the best minds ever when it comes to football in Bill Belichick. And his strength is defense. I mean, he was the defensive coordinator with former North Carolina Tar Heel Lawrence Taylor back with the New York Giants. He's by and large the guy who was the architect of the defenses under the Bill Parcells and the New England run when Belichick was actually the head coach. So you've got those two elements here, both at work, which is why I don't think either of these departures are necessarily the worst thing for North Carolina, if not more than just one extra hurdle that you have to have. Meanwhile, Joe Yock, trying to get with him in the Fast Lane. Joe, can you hear us now?
I got you now. And
Woo!
I need to know, Ed, what speed is the Fast Lane running at right now? Are we exceeding the limit at 70 in the back roads of West Virginia? Where are we at right now in the Fast Lane?
I would say we're probably in an effort to not upset our friends at Trost Law. I would say we're going 7 to 8 over the speed limit. That comfortable middle ground where you're pushing it a little bit, but you got a little bit of wiggle room.
I love it. I love where your head's at right now, Ed.
Just calm, slow, and steady. All right, Joe Yock with us here in the Fast Lane. First of all, Joe, congratulations in the booth now this year for North Carolina football. That's a pretty cool opportunity for you.
Yeah, really excited about it. Super excited to have the opportunity to do their games. Incredibly grateful for Liberty University back in 2018 and Matt Warner and that whole staff over there giving the opportunity to get a shot in the broadcasting career, and it's been a lot of fun, and look forward to calling the Tar Heel games. There's never a shortage of stories coming out of Chapel Hill.
No, there's not. We'll get to that in a moment, but to set the record straight, you mentioned Matt Warner. Emily Austin, we have to give her a shout out, otherwise I'll hear from her the next time I see her.
I should have given her a shout out. I'm going to hear from her now.
I've now set you up. I'm sorry, Joe. I'll fall on the sword for that. Are you still with the Flame Central podcast? I mean, you were this week. I heard you on Monday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the way it works Liberty now, they've only really got 3 games through ESPN. CBS Sports picks a bunch of games. So still doing the podcast and love doing that with Matt and Emily.
Yes, indeed. They are the trifecta, if you will, when it comes to Liberty Flames content and entertainment. We will nudge that towards Emily Austin in an all-loving way here in the Fast Lane. We'll get to the Flames in just a moment, though, with Joe Yock here in the Fast Lane. But North Carolina, we opined that if you actually look deeper, I know there's the chaos of last year with Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick and in the offseason and everything else. Neither the Michael Lombardi departure or, ironically, the Steve Belichick departure, as he's now on medical leave earlier today, do either of those really hurt North Carolina, considering the roster's already set? So Lombardi, there's not a lot for him to do, it would seem, in terms of this year's team. And while you lose Steve Belichick, I mean, let's not forget Bill Belichick's arguably one of the best defensive minds in the history of football.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, if you're an NC State fan, a Duke fan, a UVA fan, you know that crew, you think like, oh no, what's going on? The building's burning down in Chapel Hill. I really don't think that's the case. I mean, they got to go through the process of what they need to go through in order to make the proper decision regarding the Lombardi situation. Nobody really even knows the truth of what's happened there and what everything that's going on, the accusations, so on and so forth. So I don't think that, just like you said, with the roster set, what is the difference when you put the football on the ground and you got to start blocking, you got to start tackling? What difference will that make? You can say it's a distraction. The players, they show up, they go to work every day. They don't have a lot of, Mike Lombardi's negotiating contracts. He's trying to find the talent in order to build the roster set for this year. They've had the opportunity to have that roster since spring ball, which I think will make a big difference this year. Steve, on the other hand, obviously that's a little concerning just from the medical aspect. I hope he's okay. I know the first day of camp he was supposed to go in front of the press and he wasn't able to do it because he was sick. And then these coaches, I hope medically everything's okay, but being a coach is a grind, and if you're sick, you can get more sick just from the lack of sleep and the chance to really take care of yourself during the season. And so hopefully he'll pull out of that and get right back in it. But with that being said, 8 Super Bowl rings and being a defensive coordinator, I think they might be okay yet.
I would tend to agree with that. That's kind of the point we made earlier in the Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
Right there, however you want to consume it. But that's basically the point we made for this for North Carolina. How imperative is it, though, on two fronts to start the season fast in week 0? One, to kind of have a chance to quiet some of the noise that's been around the program. And then the second side of it is people often forget they actually seem like they were playing the best football they had over the second half of last season.
Yeah, I mean they definitely. You go back to that TCU game, and they last season, the first drive they take it down. I think they're going to light the world on fire. And the bottom line was this: is like this didn't have a very good football team. They built the team really late after Coach Belichick was hired, and then a few week maybe or so before the first game, they had injuries on the offensive line. They had a center that could barely get the shotgun snap back by. In that first game. So it is I think Coach Belichick's learned a lot throughout this past year about college football. I think there was a side that came in that said, okay, I think we just got the game of football figured out, and college is a little bit different. And I appreciate his open-mindedness to be able to say, hey, these things are a little bit different, and to start doing things a little bit differently. And then obviously the biggest influence on that was he went out and hired Bobby Petrino as an offensive coordinator. And say what you want about Bobby Petrino, the guy is one of the best football coaches in the country, one of the best offensive football coaches in the country, and he has success wherever he goes. So with a set roster and Bobby Petrino running the offense, and obviously Coach Belichick run the defense and having guys around to be able to teach what he had to teach them, and they're playing better football, like you said, at the second half of the season. I think, with the schedule, it's a very difficult schedule, but I really, really believe, and I'm an eternal optimist, but I really, really believe that you're going to see a much, much improved football team. How much will that show up in wins and losses? If they could win 6, 7 games this year and be competitive in some of those tougher games against Notre Dame, against a Miami, against a Clemson, that's a tough schedule. Those are tough asks to be able to win in year 2 there. But, if they can show drastic improvement and find a way to win 6, 7 games, that would be a heck of a season for them.
Last one on North Carolina with their football analyst on the radio, Joe Yawk, who's with us in the Fast Lane. We will get to Liberty Flames. He's still co-hosting the Flame Central podcast. But you mentioned the 6, 7 games. How reasonable is that, considering that this is still a very young team? And I think when you factor that in, there is a bit of a talent gap at that rate compared to some of the top teams on the schedule for the Heels, where they might be able to pick off a couple of them, but it's asking a lot to think they're going to be able to get 10, 11 wins this year.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that TCU game to start over in Dublin, Ireland, is going to be a big game for them. That's going to be a good measuring stick of how far the program's come, because they played them last year and got beat badly. And so if they could find a way to win that game, I think that is going to perk some ears up and spark some interest. And I really think that week 0 game it could be a huge factor in determining how if they could find a way to win that 6 and 7 games. Because you look back at last year, they're a half yard away from beating Cal on the road. The guy fumbles going in to score from the half yard line. They're at a 2-point conversion, a half yard line again from beating Virginia in overtime. Virginia obviously playing in the ACC championship. So there was a lot. Duke was another game where hey, they run a fake field goal score and they end up losing the game by 3 points, whatever it is. So you competitively with not a really great roster, they were right there in all those games, and that could have been very easily. Like UVA, for example, last year, they had a lot of things go their way during the season where they won those close games, and Carolina didn't. And so you look at, what a much improved roster, yes, a harder schedule, but if you can get the Virginias, you can get the Dukes, you can figure out a way to beat the NC States, the TCUs, they got East Tennessee State, which would be a win on the schedule. There is a path to get to 6 to 7 wins.
Joe Yock with us here in the Fast Lane. Yock Talk on Twitter and Instagram are the ways to keep up with them. You can also listen to the Flames Central podcast. Often drops on Mondays like it did this past week, where they spoke with Scott Wells, the men's soccer coach, and also discussing the opening of football camp. We heard from Jamie Chadwell yesterday, and he met with the media yesterday, and we had him Friday in the Fast Lane. If you want to go back, you can listen to our chat with him on your podcast platform there too. For Jamie Chadwell, can you sense that the energy is higher now that the health situation's in the rearview mirror? And maybe also because with only one transfer portal window, there was not that element of added stress in the spring, and they can coach these guys in a more demanding way that helps them, but also helps the team.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a different Liberty football team this year. Their feet are to the fire right now, and I think Coach Chadwell's health issue was a serious issue, and that had an effect on the season. Willie Corn, the offensive coordinator, moved on from coaching, and so Coach Chadwell's coming back, working with Newland Isaac in order to help call the plays, and I think you're going to see a much improved roster this year. But the bottom line at Liberty is this: since they had Quentin Cooley back in the day, and just a few years ago, and wherever Coach Chadwell's gone, they run the football. They can run the football, and they've successfully run the football. Bill Durkin is one of the finest offensive line coaches in the country. He's a fantastic coach, and he'll get that off. They've had some injuries. They'll get that offensive line squared away, and then they have got some potential, really, really studs coming in. That running back room is going to be deep. I think Cam Davis, the transfer from Florida State, has a chance to be really, really good. And then Peyton Jones, the Duke transfer who played at Duke, is a really, really explosive football player and can help in the passing game. So if they get that running game going like they had in the past, I think they got a really good chance. But everything revolves around, as the quarterback position. And I really believe that I think the guy, maybe, I don't know this yet, but between Deshaun Purdy, Ethan Vasco, and Jalen Henderson, that my guess is that the Wake Forest transfer, Deshaun Purdy, probably will come out with that job, and they really, really have high hopes for him. They've got some downfield threat guys now, and Jamari Person, for example, Darius Copeland. There's some guys that can get stretched the field now. So if they get that running game going, the quarterback position gets settled, I think Liberty's got the opportunity. And with the schedule, obviously opening up with JMU is going to be a great, great test for them.
It is definitely pay attention type opener for the Liberty Flames against the JMU Dukes. You mentioned the quarterback competition to get there. The idea of, 3, then get down to 2 for the first scrimmage, then get down to 1, 5 practices after that. That makes sense in theory in a lot of ways. How much of that is also the fact that it seems like the quarterback competition from the spring up to now really has given this coaching staff an understanding of where guys are entering camp, so it's not a complete mystery.
Yeah, it really tell that position. You go back to what we were talking about at Carolina when Gio Lopez showed up. He didn't show up until June and had no spring ball and anything. It makes a huge difference when you can get those guys here, get them through spring ball. Now, Ethan Vasco obviously didn't go through spring ball, coming off a shoulder injury and shoulder surgery, had a surgery. And so, it does help a ton to get those guys in, especially in a system like Jamie Chadwell's. They run that little bit different triple option with a lot more pass heavy when they want to throw the ball downfield. So it is a little bit of a unique system that does take a quarterback some time to learn. So getting those guys through spring ball, evaluating them through fall camp, and having that opportunity to figure out who that number one guy is going to be critical.
We pivot off of that to what you mentioned in the running game The offensive line, you referenced the injuries that were there. Jamey Chadwell kind of alluded to that. He also mentioned the idea of conditioning, and it kind of goes with the theme of coaching these guys really hard and giving them adversity at the start of camp. How much of that is Jamey Chadwell? How much of that is he's got a lot of trust, and understandably so, and what may be one of the most underrated coaches in the country in offensive line coach Bill Durkin?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Coach Durkin has done at Liberty. 2 years ago when Quinn Cooley was there, they led the nation in rushing. I mean, it was a machine, and wherever they go, they've run the ball. And I've had the opportunity to sit down with Big Billy Dirks, and boy, when he starts talking offensive line play, he puts his thumbs inside his waist belt and he pulls them britches up, and he's ready to talk football. And so it's impressive what he's done with that O-line. And if they can get healthy, I'm telling you right now, this running back room is filled with studs. And it's going to be interesting to see who's the one becomes the bell cow in that running back room, because there is some really good football players there, and they're going to be able to run the ball.
Last one, and we'll wrap it up on that running back position. Last year was Evan Dickens, who really carried the load, but it never seemed like there were good second and third options that were consistently reliable. Are you of the belief that that's the type of thing that will differentiate the 2026 Flames rushing attack from the 25 version? Maybe you got someone of Dickens' level, but there's a lot more versatility.
Yeah, I do. I think that Cam Davis was a highly recruited kid that went to Florida State. And then I believe, across Jalen Coleman was a freshman last year. Peyton Jones is a heck of a player. And there's, they're 5-6 deep in that room. Now, I do believe this, running back's a rhythm position. So you got to get a guy who you see step up and step above everybody else. There's got to be that one guy, the Evan Dickens type, that one guy, the Quentin Cooley type, that one guy that can step above the rest of the crowd. But, there's nothing better than competition in order to get the best out of everybody. So I'm excited about what Liberty can do offensively. But the bottom line is, and you can, have all the preseason stuff you want, you got to get a quarterback who can push the ball down the field. Because when you can push the ball down the field in Jamey Chadwell's office, and you look back to when Caden Salter was there and CJ Daniels was there, and they went to the Fiesta Bowl in an undefeated season before they played Oregon, when they were able to use Salter's legs and push the ball downfield, it changes the running. It changes your whole running game. Allows the defense to spread out. They can't bring the guys down in the box. It's a different animal. Until that problem is solved at Liberty, I don't care how good a line you have, how good a backs you get. When they put too many bodies in that box because they don't feel like there's a threat to throw the ball downfield, nothing will change. The quarterback position has to be fixed in order for Liberty to win football games.
We got a good fix of Flames insight today, and a little Carolina as well with Joe Yock, Flame Central podcast co-host and North Carolina football radio analyst here in the Fast Lane. Joe, thank you for your time, and we encourage you that when you're on the roads, keep it in that coveted 7 to 8 range.
I will do it all day long. Thanks for having me on, Ed.
Our pleasure. Joe Yock with us here in the Fast Lane. When we return, they were off last week, but they're back on now this week. NASCAR at Iowa. It's the precursor to racing in Richmond next weekend. We'll discuss it with Danny Peters of frontstretch.com next here in the Fast Lane.
Midday hunger hitting you hard? Swing by Macadoo's for our $8.95 weekday lunch specials. Whether you're craving a classic crunch or something fresh, we've got you covered. Chicken tender basket featuring crispy golden tenders served with fries. The Macadoo's Chef Salad, a healthy, loaded favorite that will hit the spot. Hit back against your lunchtime hunger at Macadoo's with eats that won't break the bank.
Time to share it and fun. Just to be there the only one. Just to be there at Macadoo's.
We'll see you at the Do's.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
Edge of your seat drama, the thrilling pursuit of victories and championships. From the premier NASCAR series to local racing, visit frontstretch.com for your true inside access. We don't just report the news, we live it. From insightful articles and captivating podcast commentary, frontstretch.com opens the gates to the NASCAR pits, track, corporate suite so you can get closer to the garage than ever before. Frontstretch.com. Fast, fearless, focused on racing fans.
The number 3, one of the most important and powerful numbers on so many levels. And for your wallet, it's powerful at InstantRadioDeals.com. Enter the promo code FIRE at checkout for 33.3% off the list price of select items. Liberty Flames individual game tickets, Liberty Flames season tickets for the upcoming football season, and Hill City Howlers skyboxes and general admission with a $10 food voucher. All through the end of August. 33.3% off the list price of those items when you enter the promo code FIRE at checkout.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
They say timing is everything. Was the bye week timing good for NASCAR or not? Somebody who was possibly enjoying it and will be back to work this weekend at Iowa. Frontstretch.com's Danny Peters with us here in the Fast Lane. Danny, great to be speaking with you. The timing of the bye week seems like it's good because it allows teams the chance to spend at least 1 week or so in the summer with their families and do some family activities in the midst of the NASCAR grind because the other buys happen during the school year. Is this good for NASCAR, even if it takes away a weekend where there's not as much competition from an audience perspective?
Yeah, I think it's good for the teams. I was actually speaking to, and hi Ed, thanks for having me on. Good to see you, mate. I was speaking to someone on one of the teams this week about it, and he was saying, you know, it's a nice break for us because it's a third of the way. They're almost exactly 2/3 of the way through the season, and there's a third of the way to go. So you've got the 4 races to the playoffs, and then you've got the 10 race playoffs. And like you say, it gives everyone a chance to have kind of a summer holiday, a little bit of a reset. And NASCAR's on a lot. You know, I know what you're saying. There's less competition in some of those summer weekends, but I think it's good for the industry to have that break and to get a little bit of time to rest and recharge and get ready for the stretch run starting this weekend in Iowa, where I will be going for the first time. I've not been to Iowa before. Very excited.
So there have been different comparisons of Iowa. Some people have said, even though it's similar in length to Richmond, don't even view it that way, view it differently. Not to mention the fact that now the news came out on today, Thursday, August the 6th, that it's going to get a full repave and be on July 4th next year as schedule leaks are happening in NASCAR. We'll get to that in a moment. Sticking with Iowa, how do you contextualize the caliber of racing and quality that we're going to see out in the Midwest this weekend?
I think that's a good question. You know, and in general, the sort of racing that we've seen on the short tracks this year that hasn't been as good with this new car, right? We haven't seen the excitement that we've traditionally seen at short tracks. We've seen that excitement come more in the mile and a halves, you know. So I think you'd be hoping for a good race, but perhaps not necessarily expecting a good race.
Interesting. Hoping for one, but not necessarily expecting. Do you view this as racing similar to Richmond in the sense of kind of that, you know, it looks like a short, but it really races like an intermediate track? Will this just flat out race like an intermediate? Or this where maybe you were NASCAR fans give the dreaded sigh, is Iowa going to unfortunately, even though it's not a full short track, race like one, which could mean less passing?
I would think more the latter. I mean, I would hope on Sunday we're going to see a lot of it, but I do think you're in the right ballpark with that thought, to be honest with you, Ed. It feels like probably it's going to be that way. And certainly, as you say, we do go to Richmond, a nice local track for you, right? Or much closer to you the following week, where you would expect to see a different kind of race again. The repave will be an interesting thing because repave tracks react a lot different. You know, I remember Sonoma, a track that, you know, you never see a caution or barely see a caution the first year after that repave, and that's a road course, so granted it's different, but they had something like 8 cautions in the first 2 stages. So the repaves can really, really shake things up as well.
Indeed, they absolutely can. We are chatting with Danny Peters. He's at Danny Peters on Twitter, and he's with frontstretch.com, and he's joining us today here in the Fast Lane. Danny, we've touched on the quality of racing at Iowa this weekend. Denny Hamlin is the prohibitive favorite at this point. Is this, he deserves to be the favorite based on how his skills measure up with Iowa, or is this more of a, he deserves to be the favorite because it's just it's at this point, he's dominating almost every track?
I mean, Denny hasn't actually traditionally run well at Iowa. I think he's best finish is 12th in the races that have been there. So he hasn't traditionally run well there. And you might look to other guys like the last two winners, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, who certainly needs a win. But I think you do have to take a step back and say, Denny Hamlin, the body of work this season, outside of a couple of bad finishes, he's been remarkably consistent. He's knocked on the door for wins, week in, week out, the whole season long. And he's got a 94-point lead, I think, in the standings. And looks like he's going to win the regular season championship, which this year, according to Denny on his podcast, does not have a trophy. Maybe this is just fate for Denny. He's never going to get that season-long trophy. But he's certainly been the most consistent driver on the year. And I think the format for the chase sets up well for him. And certainly the tracks within the chase, I think he's won all of the tracks in the playoffs, sets up well for him as well. But I'm not expecting him to win this weekend. But, like you say, he's winning everywhere. He's running well everywhere. Who knows? Let's see.
We've touched on everything for this weekend at Iowa except potential dark horses. If you're looking at that, do you look within the Toyota camp, or do you see somebody from outside of Toyota being able to disrupt their stranglehold?
I mean, it's a great question. We talked about this last time, right? Just the stranglehold that Toyota have had, but it does feel like the other manufacturers are starting to close in a little bit more. I mean, wouldn't surprise me to see someone like William Byron win there. So, I mean, does he count as a dark horse? I'm not sure if he really does, but it wouldn't surprise me to see someone like that get up there and win. And Blaney's certainly not a dark horse. I mean, he's third in the standings, but he's another one I would look out for. And then, you never know. But will we see a dark horse win this weekend? I doubt it. I would suspect it will be a guy that's currently in the top 10 or so in the standings. We'll probably go to victory lane this weekend in Iowa.
In front of our own Danny Peters. Well, he's actually front stretches, but we call him our own because we enjoy having him in the fast lane.
Same. I did enjoy. Can I just say, as a small aside, I did enjoy hearing Brian Nolan's dulcet tones on the commercial in the break just before this. That was interesting. And there were some words with 3 syllables in there. I'm impressed that he got through them.
Wow, you're even taking zingers at Brian Nolan. I had no clue this extended beyond just Trey Lyle, Dalton Hopkins, and Michael Massey, that it is now extended to other members of the front stretch family. Who doesn't have zingers for Brian Nolan?
But we love him. And you know what's true about British people?
What?
If the British person makes fun of you and has a joke at you, it means they like you. If a British person is super polite to you, it probably means they don't like you.
Well, that's interesting. I never knew that about British people. I just have always known that they can say things in a much more critical tone, and it just sounds so much nicer. All right, little detour for a moment in the fast lane.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
You can tell me if people in Britain actually watch this show, and British people do. My wife and I prefer the Great British Baking Show to like the American cooking shows, because in those shows in America, you have to have conflict. You have to have drama. Never mind if it's manufactured. You have to have people almost at each other's throats. Whereas in Britain, they can be competing and nice against each other and say critical things in a very polite, civilized manner. And I appreciate that. Is that actually how it works over there?
Yeah, there's a whole subtext to everything you say. Like, if you bump into someone on the street, you're like, oh, we must get a drink. And, oh, yeah, definitely. Let's get a drink. That absolutely means you're never going to go out for a drink with that person. Full stop, period. You are not going out for a drink with that person. So, yeah, absolutely. You're right. And it's a great show. My mum loved that show. I know a lot of people here in America who love that show, but definitely a great show. And glad to hear that you and Mrs. Ed Lane watched that show.
Yeah, well, she would say I'm Mr. Mead Lane. Is actually how it would be, but I'm not gonna dispute that. I want to make sure that have dinner this weekend, that type of thing.
I know you're a happily married man and a good father, Mr. Lane. I know this. I know that you are. I'm sure you're a good husband.
I'm covering my face up right now for Fastlane, Ed Lane, and VTR in Sports, Facebook Live and YouTube viewers, and I'm pointing to that wedding ring as a reminder. All right.
In case one exception to that might be if your boy Ty Gibbs is leading with a few laps to go in a NASCAR race, maybe there's a different story going on there.
Oh, there definitely have been distractions when that's happened. She's, it is what it is. There's the eye roll inducing moments pop up, which brings us, by the way, from our detour.
After Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, Let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
To nuggets that pop up. So NASCAR is doing these schedule release leaks over the last week or two, and we're starting to get more and more of the picture. This is similar to the NFL where they have like a big schedule release show, but they do leaks leading up to it. Do you like this for NASCAR?
No. Give me the schedule all at once. Don't leak it. I'm like in the English Premier League, there's a date. This year it was June the 18th. And on that day, you know every game, who you're playing from game 1 to match day 38. That's the way that I'd like it. I hate these leagues. I just want to know. And from a personal perspective, selfish perspective, I'm like trying to line up my weekends for races next season. But I would rather it just came out, boom, done. I don't like the leagues.
All right. There are 3 schedule nuggets that pop up. One of them is Jordan Bianchi, who was on the Front Stretch Happy Hour podcast. It was a couple days before the Kyle Busch tragedy. And I bring that up to contextualize it because the nugget got lost, understandably so, because once the Kyle Busch tragedy happened, everybody justifiably shifted their attention to it. But when Jordan Bianchi was on the Front Stretch Happy Hour podcast a few months ago, he mentioned that Martinsville Speedway is not in danger in the eyes of NASCAR of losing a date. Even though the racing has been okay in certain spots, not great in others, are you on board with that line of thinking of Martinsville still having a place, even if people have their questions about it?
I mean, it was the site of the 6th race ever in NASCAR, and it's been on the schedule ever since. And, you know, up until this most recent generation of car, Martinsville were races that you tuned in. You wanted to see those races because they were fantastic. With this new car, they've been less good, and that's just the case. That's just the truth of it, right? But no, I'm absolutely in favor of Martinsville keeping two races on the schedule. It's a historic track. I think it's a really important track, and I think it links the past and the present in a beautiful way. So yeah, sign me up for 2 races a year at the Paperclip. And it will get better. I have faith that it will get better again, as it used to be. I mean, go back before this generation of car, it was one of the races you wanted to see every year on the slowest, smallest track in NASCAR.
If anything, should the role of a place like Martinsville be that NASCAR needs to keep eyeing that if the racing is not as good as it could be there, that's a red herring, or at least it's a sign that the car has got to be changed so that you can get back to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a red flag, not a red herring, right? But
there it is. Yes, yes.
I'm going to let you off that one. But yeah, I mean, I think it is. The things need to change with that, at the short tracks, because you've got these tracks that traditionally and historically have been the races to watch, and they're not right now. Like, that's the simple truth of it. They're not. So yeah, I mean, changes need to happen. I think it's encouraging that we're going to see a change at Daytona, you know, a change to the package at Daytona. And obviously I realize that's not a short track, but, you know, that's NASCAR reacting to some of the comments and the criticisms that they've seen, and they've made a change. We had another change today where they said if there's a caution in the last 10 laps before a stage break, that's going to be the caution, and preventing those unnecessarily yellow flag laps. So I do think NASCAR is listening, maybe much more actively than they have done in the past. And so I would hope that there could be some changes there that would make that racing better and bring back the magic to Martinsville and Bristol and, you know, those short tracks that have been a really important part of the history of the sport. Really.
Meanwhile, on the subject of short tracks and scheduling, also, Jordan Bianchi, theathletic.com, has reported that 3 dates are going to move out of the NASCAR playoffs, the chase. Yeah. Bristol, Darlington, and Gateway.
Yeah.
And 3 are going to go in. Richmond, New Hampshire, and Watkins Glen. First of all, the 3 that are going out. Bristol, that late August date always seemed to fit better than in mid to late September. You're not competing with Tennessee football. Darlington, it's merely just when Labor Day falls on the calendar. And Gateway, I think that's kind of symbiotic. You can move that one around. Meanwhile, Richmond has often been one of those early races in the chase. And then Watkins Glen seemed like it needed to be relocated from the spring, given the weather challenges navigating that venue. Yeah. What is your assessment of those developments?
I think there's part of me that's sad that Bristol and Darlington go out of the playoffs. You know, again, historic tracks. Less bothered about Gateway going out of it, I would say. But, you know, when you look at who's coming in, Richmond, great track. Loudon, can be hit or miss. And then Watkins Glen. And I do think it's important to have a road course. You know, we have anything from 5 to 6 on the schedule at the moment. So I do think it's important in those races, in those last 10 races, that the road course racing discipline is in there. And I do agree also, probably a better time for Watkins Glen. And that's always a race that people love to go to. You know, that's a sold out race, and the fans up there, I think, deserve the opportunity to see their track in the playoffs. But no, the part of me is pretty sad about Darlington and Bristol moving out. But I also think it's good, you know, let's mix up those tracks. You know, let's mix up where we go to for the last race of the season. We're doing that this year. We're going to go back to Miami, and I think that's Phoenix is a amazing venue, a great place for a final race of the season. But I think it'll be good to see that final race be at Miami this year.
Danny Peters, frontstretch.com, NASCAR reporter with us in the fast lane, W227BG Timberlake, WVGM Amherstburg, WMNA, Gretna, Danville, Southside. We'll wrap the scheduling talk up in our chat with Danny Peters on this one. The nugget that seems sad but understandable is that it looks like Rockingham will not be back on the NASCAR schedule with a National Series race, Cup, O'Reilly Auto Parts, or Truck Series next year due to some ownership challenges and financial instability. They're shutting down some other venues within that ownership group. Is this it was great while it lasted at Rockingham, or is this more of hey, we're going to put it on the shelf and see if someone else can revive it?
I hope more of the latter. You know, I hope that's the case, that it is more of the latter, because again, another historic venue in the sport, and I hope it comes back. And look, we've seen tracks drop out and come back in. You know, we've seen tracks go from 2 to 1. We've seen Dover from 2 races to 1 races to this year an all-star race, and now next year we'll be back in the Cup Series. So things can change, and I hope in the case of Rockingham that things do change and that it does come back onto the schedule. But yeah, sad state of affairs, to be honest with you. Sad state of affairs.
It is, and it's unfortunately a sad way to end our chat, but it's been overall really good and pleasant with Danny Peters of frontstretch.com. Danny, we're always glad when we can link up. I'm glad your schedule worked out for us to connect today. Thank you for making some time for us today here in the Fast Lane, and we will keep it locked to frontstretch.com with NASCAR heading back into action at Iowa this weekend.
I appreciate you, Ed. Thanks for having me on, mate. Good to see you.
Likewise, Danny Peters, frontstretch.com here in the Fast Lane. We're at Fast Lane Ed Lane on our socials and however you listen to podcasts. That does it for us today. Now, on to Freddie and Harry in progress, and then 8 p.m., football is back for free on 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app. Big one, Kenny Pickett and the Carolina Panthers against Carson Beck and the Arizona Cardinals. Who's excited for some backup quarterback action on the VTRN Sports app in an hour and change.